2015, a family in Queens, New York, experienced a startling event when a burglar armed with a knife and dressed in a beanie and sweater entered their home around 2:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. Captured by a Nanny camera, the intruder meticulously searched the residence room by room, eventually making his way into the bedroom where the family, including 3 children aged 3 to 6, were asleep. With the knife held in his teeth, he crawled on the floor, undetected at first. His attention was caught by a smartphone on a dresser, which he attempted to steal. This action woke the father, prompting the burglar to flee the scene. The NYPD, in efforts to apprehend the suspect, described as 6 foot 2 inches tall and weighing 200 pounds, dressed in black with a diamond branded snow hat, released the footage to the public. Number 7. Casey Brengle. In May of 2019, 26-year-old Casey Brengle was caught on camera roaming around stark naked and cavorting with her boyfriend in a South Bay, California home where she was supposed to be pet sitting. Her client, Rosie Brown, was alerted when her system notified her of an unexpected visitor who turned out to be a man. Upon reviewing the footage, Brown fired Brengle immediately. She also passed word along to WAG, the platform that Brengle had used to score the gig, resulting in the nudist nanny getting suspended from the service. Brengle never appeared directly on camera doing anything more steamy than kissing with her boyfriend, but she does appear in the buff multiple times. She is seen on at least 2 occasions leading her boyfriend into her client's bedroom, but she insists that no love was made. Brown told a local news outlet after the fact that Brengle had not delivered on promises made regarding the service. Additionally, she was torn up about the living room sofa featured in the videos. She said that she had saved up for 6 months to get the piece of furniture, but no longer finds herself comfortable using it after seeing Brengle sit and lie on it sans clothing. Brengle may be out of a job as a pet sitter, but she technically committed no crime, which means that she's free to repeat this mistake with another client on another platform, assuming she's not learned her lesson and her potential client doesn't bother to do any research on her before hiring. Number 6. Kicks from the Caregiver. In February of 2016, a young man released nanny cam footage that showed his 94-year-old grandmother being battered by a home care worker in Buenos Aires, Argentina. A report from a local news station gave the video further publicity. In the footage, the caregiver can be seen slapping her elderly client, pulling her hair and even sitting on a couch next to her and kicking her. The reason that there was a camera installed in the first place was because the woman's family had become suspicious in recent weeks that she might be suffering abuse. Nevertheless, they were not prepared for what they saw when they finally decided to watch the footage. The grandson not only shared the video with the local news station, but also with police, and he even put the video out on Facebook, warning others about the caregiver. Number 5. Lauren Rowe. In 2021 in North Carolina, Max Oglesby and Laura, his wife, experienced a parent's nightmare through their nanny cam, witnessing their son Declan being mishandled by their nanny, Lauren Rowe. The disturbing footage revealed Rowe forcibly feeding Declan chicken pot pie despite his protests and cries for his parents. Declan's distress was palpable as he screamed "No!" and "Daddy!" while Rowe, undeterred, continued with her forceful actions and even proclaimed the need for control over the child. The incident led to an immediate reaction from the Oglesbys, who shared the video on social media and alerted the authorities, resulting in Rowe's arrest and a misdemeanor child abuse charge. The case, which lingered for more than 2 years, concluded in March 2024 with Rowe pleading no contest and receiving a sentence of 7 days in jail, followed by a 24-month probation period with strict conditions, including prohibitions on working or volunteering with minors. Number 4. Bleached coffee. In February of 2023, 39-year-old Melody Feliciano Johnson was arrested and charged with first-degree attempted murder after her husband figured out that she had tried to kill him by poisoning his coffee. Authorities in Pima County, Arizona, brought her in after her husband, Roby Johnson, had acted on his suspicions and taken a video wherein he used a pool testing strip on the water in his coffee maker. The poisoning allegedly began while Roby, being in active duty with the U.S. Air Force, was stationed out in Germany. He was in the middle of divorce proceedings with his wife, but had brought her and their child with him to ensure their continued welfare until it was all finalized. He began to notice a strange taste in his coffee one day, prompting Roby to set up cameras. He captured Melody on multiple occasions, pouring a mysterious liquid into the coffee maker. The footage led him to perform the aforementioned testing, and he concluded that the additive was household bleach. He had to continue pretending to drink the adulterated coffee until he was stateside again and could contact local police. The present state of the case is unclear, but Melody was held in jail on a $250,000 bond. The high bond was reportedly imposed because she had recently purchased a home in the Philippines, which made her a flight risk. According to Roby, he suspects that she was trying to kill him with the poison and collect death benefits. Doctors on the case noted that the typically low concentration of household bleach, coupled with the small amounts that Melody was using, were unlikely to seriously harm the victim. Number 3. Raging babysitter busted in January of 2019. 21-year-old McKenna Newell of West Valley City, Utah, was caught on film abusing 2 young children that she was caring for and wound up serving only 30 days in jail. Newell's assaults were caught on the home's Nanny cam system. In the footage, she kicks both of the children on multiple occasions, aggressively places them on furniture, covers their mouths to stop them from crying, and even places a blanket firmly over one of the children's heads. The children's father reported the babysitter's actions immediately, resulting in a warrant being issued that same month for her arrest. She turned herself in and claimed that she did not recall committing any of the violent and abusive actions seen in the videos. After a short case, she was ultimately sentenced to 30 days in jail, along with 3 years of probation, fines in the amount of $5,000, and mandatory anger management classes. She was also diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. She was ordered to report to the local jail for her sentence in October and did so. Authorities partnered with therapists to help reform Newell, and her participation in treatment immediately after the incident affected her sentence. The 2 children, meanwhile, were checked out after the abuse and were cleared by medical staff. Newell's rampage had not done any permanent damage. The charges that she was facing, including child abuse and causing injury to a minor, are normally felony charges. Today's topic was requested by Irie Bay, Delacny Smith 4565, and Shernette Mills. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Thrown toward her toddler. On June the 1st of 2016, Newark, New Jersey man Sean Custis was sentenced to life in prison for the brutal beatdown that he had visited upon an unnamed woman in 2013, all while her 3-year-old daughter looked on in horror. The whole thing was caught on video and capped off a long criminal record that compelled the judge to ensure that Custis was off the streets for good. In the footage, Custis forces his way into the home, then storms toward the victim, who is sitting on the couch with her daughter. He soundly beats the woman with his fists, barely missing the toddler, and goes wandering off inside the home. He returns a short time later and notices the victim trying to get up, so he brutalizes her further, then stuffs her in a closet, where she remains until he calmly leaves through the front door. It's not seen in the video, but he reportedly threw her down a flight of stairs as well, with the young child inches away as her mother crashed to the ground. In court, The battered mother showed clear signs of trauma in her emotional response. She reported that she now carries around a personal alarm at all times and hadn't opened any windows in her home since the incident. Custis argued that there was corruption afoot because one of the responding officers could be heard in the video hurling a racial slur at him, but his allegation ultimately did not affect how the case played out. Custis's criminal history is long and varied, including an assault similar to this one back in the 90s when he pushed a woman and her child down a flight of stairs. Along with his life sentence, he was given 5 years for child endangerment. Custis won't become eligible for parole until at least 2076. Right after the last listing, we will tune up our previous video about when life insurance policies go wrong. Stick around if you'd like to watch that one as well still. Number 1. A crappy relationship. In March of 2023, 45-year-old Cherie Spencer of Bubwith, UK, was sentenced to 4 years in jail at Hull Crown Court after nanny cam footage showed only a small part of what her battered husband alleges was a 20-year-long cycle of abuse. 47-year-old Richard Spencer had inadvertently attracted the attention of a welfare worker, sporting serious bruises back in 2021. This prompted the worker to call in the situation to the police, leading to Cherie's arrest. The two had met in 2000, then got married in 2009. For most of that time, Richard endured near constant physical and mental abuse at the hands of his wife. In the released nanny cam footage, she can be seen brandishing a knife at him, striking him and screaming at him. Reportedly, she even defecated on the floor of their 7-bedroom home at one point and forced him to clean it up. Richard recently revealed everything about the long-term abuse in a documentary that he helped a local news station to produce. It was later found by another news outlet that Cherie had attempted to make legal moves that would have seen the documentary left on the cutting room floor. Number 7. Hakan Aysel. In June of 2018, 40-year-old Hakan Aysel and his wife, Semra, aged 32, were vacationing in the city of Muğla, Turkey. Semra was 7 months pregnant at the time. For a couple of hours, the couple was taking photos atop a cliff overlooking the sea. At some point, Semra went over the edge and suffered a fatal fall. It was initially regarded as a tragic accident, and Hakan claimed that his wife had slipped. 2 years later, the authorities arrested him on suspicion of having pushed his wife off of the cliff. The prosecution stated that he'd waited until there were no witnesses before killing Semra. He'd allegedly done so to claim her life insurance policy, estimated at nearly $60,000, of which he was the sole beneficiary. The victim's family discovered that Hakan had also taken a number of loans in Semra's name over the course of their marriage. The investigation is ongoing, but if found guilty, Hakan faces life in prison. Number 6. Michael Martin Jr. In June of 2018, an Australian man was convicted of murdering his father with a samurai sword in order to collect on the insurance policies he'd previously taken out on his life. 46-year-old Michael Martin Sr. and his estranged son, Michael Jr., reconnected in 2013. The former, then 25 years old, reached out to his father. A reported alcoholic, the man had been violent and neglectful towards his son as he was growing up. Nevertheless, Michael Jr. appeared willing to have a relationship with his father. In February of 2014, he took out 3 life insurances on him, with a cumulative worth of $2.5 million. In April, Michael Sr. and a friend who was staying the night in his Murwillumbah home were the victims of a violent home invasion in which they were beaten and stabbed. Both men sustained life-threatening injuries, but they survived with medical intervention. The attack left Michael Sr. with multiple fractures, loss of sight in one eye, septic shock, and the need for dialysis. His son is believed to have been behind the attack. Michael Jr. regularly visited his father in the hospital and drove him home once he was released. Less than 2 days later, Michael Sr. was found dead at his residence in what his son had staged to look like another random home invasion. Martin Jr. was found bound but uninjured, while his father had been stabbed 16 times with a samurai sword. The fatal blows had pierced the man's heart. The killing, which a judge claimed had been executed with a cold-blooded determination, was connected to Michael Jr., and he was sentenced to a maximum of 37 years in prison. Number 5. Paula Leeson. In June of 2017, British woman Paula Leeson and husband Donald McPherson, both 47, were vacationing at a cottage in Nordre-Nobel, a remote village in Denmark. While at the cottage, Leeson drowned in an indoor pool that was only 4 foot deep. 13 separate injuries were found on her body. McPherson, who maintained his innocence, became the main suspect when it emerged that he'd taken out multiple life insurance policies on his wife in the years leading up to her death. The woman knew nothing about the policies, which amounted to nearly $5 million. She was also set to inherit a fortune from her family's successful construction business, something that McPherson reportedly resented. Handwriting experts concluded that forms on payout documents, which would have benefited the woman's son from a previous marriage, were also forged so that the money would be diverted to McPherson. In the ensuing trial, the prosecution alleged that McPherson had killed his wife for the insurance money and then also tampered with her will. The trial collapsed in March of 2021 after a judge concluded that the prosecution's case had been built on circumstantial evidence. The jury was directed to a not guilty verdict, with the judge arguing that while the murder hypothesis was clearly more likely, there wasn't enough evidence to support it. Even though many suspected that he'd killed his wife, McPherson was a free man. Number 4. Carlson. In order to collect on the insurance money, New York man Carlson murdered his wife and then his own son 17 years later. In 1991, Carlson and his wife Christina were living in California with their 3 children. On New Year's Day, the woman died in a house fire, which at the time was ruled as an accident. In the weeks leading up to her death, Carlson had taken out a life insurance policy on his wife, from which he collected $200,000. Only 4 days after the fire, he moved back to his native New York with the children. In November of 2008, 23-year-old Levi Carlson was working on his father's truck. The vehicle fell off the jack and fatally crushed the young man, who was a father of 2. Carlson had convinced Levi a few weeks before his death to get a life insurance policy on himself and make him the sole beneficiary, under the guise that he'd administer the distribution of the money to his children. He collected $700,000 and Levi's death was considered accidental. By 2012, Carlson's second marriage to Cindy Best had started to fall apart. She had serious suspicions that he'd been responsible for Christina and Levi's deaths. Best hired a private investigator to look into her husband and was shocked to discover that he'd get $1.2 million in the event of her demise. After contacting the police, she agreed to wear a wire and get her husband to talk about Christina and Levi. When talking about his son's death, the man said that he saw an opportunity and took advantage of the situation. Carlson was arrested. After he was sentenced for killing his son, the authorities found enough evidence to connect him to Christina's death as well. The fire had been started deliberately, and she'd succumbed to smoke inhalation in a bathroom, the window of which Carlson had previously boarded up. For his crimes, Carlson would spend the rest of his life in prison. Number 3. Brenda Andrew. Brenda Andrew is currently the only woman on Oklahoma's death row. In 1984, she married her high school sweetheart, Rob, with whom she had 2 children. By the 1990s, the couple's relationship became strained. Brenda, a Sunday school teacher, was reportedly verbally abusive towards Rob and had started having extramarital affairs. The couple separated. In November of 2001, Rob stopped by to pick up his children, and Brenda asked him to check the furnace pilot light in the garage. A few moments later, the woman called 911, claiming that 2 gunmen had attacked them. Rob was shot dead, while she was wounded in the arm. It wasn't long before the investigators discovered that she'd been seeing insurance agent James Pavitt. He'd recently sold Rob an $800,000 life insurance policy, which named Brenda the sole beneficiary. Rob had become suspicious after an incident in which he discovered his brake lines had been severed. He'd tried to remove Brenda from the life insurance policy, but James told him it couldn't be done. Rob contacted a man superior and then confided in him that he believed his estranged wife and her lover were trying to kill him. The authorities suspect that the couple had executed Rob in the garage with his own 16-gauge shotgun, which Brenda had kept when he moved out. James then shot her in the arm in a failed attempt to throw the police off their trail. In the aftermath of the killing, James and Brenda fled the country. A few months later, they were arrested at the Mexican border. They were sentenced to death in separate trials. Number 2. Robert Wayne Feldman. In February of 2018, 53-year-old Denver man Robert Wayne Feldman was arrested for the first-degree murder of his wife, Stacy. Feldman had called 911 in March of 2015, claiming that he'd found his wife unresponsive in the shower. He told officers she'd taken marijuana and edibles at a party the night before. Feldman reported that he'd last seen her in the morning before taking the children to school and that she wasn't feeling well. Suspicions rose as no THC was found in her system, but homicide couldn't be proven. In June of 2015, Feldman collected on his wife's $750,000 life insurance, which he'd taken out on her a few years prior. A woman that Feldman had cheated on Stacy with then contacted the authorities. They'd met through Tinder, and the man had lied to her, claiming he wasn't married. After finding him on social media, the woman contacted Stacy via email. Phone records revealed that the two had spoken on the morning of her death, sharing in the fury that they'd been deceived by Feldman. Hours later, Stacy was dead. In December of 2017, an expert reviewed all the evidence gathered in the investigation and concluded that Stacy had died as a result of strangulation or suffocation. Number 1. Kwame Wilson. In 2020, aspiring rapper Kwame Wilson, known to his followers as Young QC, was sentenced to 99 years in prison for ordering the killing of his own mother, Yolanda Holmes. The 45-year-old woman was beloved in her Chicago community. She owned the Nappy Head Salon, a successful salon which she'd often used to host or publicize community events. In 2012, Holmes was attacked at her home in the 1000 block of West Montrose Avenue. The gunman was identified as 22-year-old Eugene Spencer, who'd been driven to the address by Lorianna Johnson, aged 23. Holmes was shot in the head and stabbed multiple times. Phone records would later indicate that Wilson was in contact with the attackers before, during, and after the killing. Only a week after his mother's brutal slaying, he emptied out her bank accounts and collected her 2 life insurance policies. In the aftermath, Wilson was seen throwing cash into the crowds at his shows. He also customized his Mustang, which his mother had bought him. Once the murder plot was uncovered by the authorities, all 3 conspirators were arrested. Spencer and Johnson confessed to their role in the killing. Similar to Wilson, the hitman was sentenced to 100 years in prison. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live in a $200,000 apartment or in a $5 million mansion with the condition that everything you do is broadcasted on YouTube Live? Let us know in the comments section below.